Hello there, all you weary listeners who once again have the opportunity to listen to us drone on about something that's meaningful to us in our own lives in the hopes that we can help ourselves and maybe you pick up something that helps you as well. It's time once again for I Didn't Sign Up for This. Carrie, let us begin. What are we thinking tonight?
Hey, Tim. So last week we talked a lot about the fact that we look at other people's lives and we use it as a baseline to determine how happy we are or not, right? So
Right.
What about when we use others' experiences to determine that we're way happier than they are? So I know that a lot of times we look at this perfect image on Facebook or in social media or what have you, and we go, well, my life's not like that. I must really suck. But what about that car wreck that you can't help but stare at? But deep down inside, it makes you feel a little bit better about life because your day may be bad, but it's not as bad as that guy's.
Yeah, I can see that. I think people do that. I think it's probably a bad idea in general because there's no way you're going to get a steady stream of car wrecks to feel good about yourself. Right?
I don't know. Have you been on the 10?
You know what? Honestly, driving in Arizona, you probably got a point.
I'm pretty sure my life is better than most of the people out there.
Oh, wow. Honestly, if there's any one place in the world where you can get an idea of what a steady stream of idiot drivers, okay, but not, I mean that in the sweetest, kindest way.
Bless their hearts.
What? Oh, we just lost Arizona.
Bye, Arizona. We'll miss you.
It's been fun. Please don't throw tomatoes at us. Oh, I'm going to have to take all the marketing materials off of the office in the car and just hide now.
Well.
And I don't mean to paint with such a broad brush, but I think anybody who's driven in Arizona goes, yeah, he's got a point, right? Yeah. Fair enough. I
don't know. I have this thing where when I drive down the road and I see somebody, for a lot of years I'd stop. And I dated a guy that told me that I needed to quit stopping for people because if they were in trouble or had a broken down car, I'd stop to see what I could do to help. And he got really upset because he said, you're not protected, you're not safe or whatever. And it was really funny because I never thought about that. I just thought about the person in need, right? But you see somebody, I see somebody on the side of the road with a flat tire and I'm like, oh, you're having a crappy day. I'm so sorry. I hope that doesn't happen to me. Wait a minute. I've got roadside assistance. It won't happen to me kind of thing. And so immediately it's my go-to to compare my situation to theirs and go, well, you know what? They're having a crappy day, but I'm safe. I'm protected. I'm good.
Okay. Yeah.
So how many times do we do that in life? How often do you look at somebody else's life and you go, you know what? I may have bad days, but your life is a shit show. And I'm good because I'm setting the bar a little bit higher than where you are. And so as long as I'm higher than you are, I'm okay. But is that true? I mean, what does that mean to us and to our own progression?
All right. And I think ultimately it steals happiness away from us a little bit because you're attaching happiness to things that you can't readily access or control. Right?
Okay.
I mean, when you are looking at somebody else's life and saying, wow, that guy is just messed up. And so comparatively, I'm doing dramatically better. The temptation is to see that same person begin to overcome those problems, even succeed. And so now you're looking at it from a position of, oh my gosh, just like 2 years ago, that guy was just on his knees. And now, I work for him. How can this be? And now I feel really bad about myself because we're attaching our sense of self-worth to people and situations and happenings, for lack of a better word, that we don't have a vote in. We don't have any insight in. We don't have any control of. We're taking pleasure in someone else's fortune, either good fortune or misfortune, doesn't matter. And that controls how we feel about ourselves, then we're doing ourselves a grave disservice. Both of those roads lead to unhappiness.
Well, and I think about, so that reminds me of a situation that I was in a couple of years ago with my career. I had decided that I was going to apply for a management position. And then because of some family issues that arose, I decided to pull out of the running. Okay. And so my role very much was leading the people on my team and helping them from a project management perspective. Okay. And then I remember the day that I called my boss's boss. My boss had moved on to a new position. And I called her and I said, look, I've got some family stuff. It turned out my little brother was diagnosed with, cancer again. It was it was the second time it had come back. He was going to have brain surgery. I felt like the best thing for me to do was to pull out of the running for this management position, because I needed to be there for my family, because ultimately I didn't want to be traveling across the country when my brother was recovering from brain surgery the second time. And so part of the repercussions of that was I ended up having to transition and sync up with the person that was taking that management position and make sure she was up to speed. Okay. So although I'm ambitious and I wanted that position, my family was more important. So in that moment, I made a choice and I withdrew. But ultimately, the consequence was that I had to kind of, educate the person that was coming into the role on what we had done as a team, because I had taken the initiative to run the projects for that team and help other team members develop their project plans. And so that was a huge thing for me. It was really hard to do. Even though I love the person that was taking over the team, I had to put my pride aside and go, okay, well, I gave up the opportunity to interview for this position. And in hindsight, I probably had a good opportunity or a good chance of getting that role because I was already doing about 70% of it. And, but so it's all about choice, right? It's about the choices we make, and you never know until you're on the other side of that choice whether it was the right choice for you or not. So you have to give up some element of control and understand that you can't plan for every outcome, and you can't design every potential scenario to work to your advantage. In hindsight, I probably could have handled both. But for me to be there for my mom and to be there for my brother and to be that support role and know that it was okay to sit in a hospital room with my laptop and work while he was in recovery versus trying to run a team and not being able to give 100%, it was a choice that I made. It wasn't right or wrong. I don't know what would have happened. I took the road less traveled, right? I didn't go the ambitious route and say, you know what, to hell with my family. They'll figure it out. I'm going to do this. I chose my family instead.
And the fact is, you can never know, because the road not taken is always the road not taken.
Right.
It's interestingly enough, I had a conversation just today with someone, and this is a super hot button topic, very touchy. I do not mean to offend anyone, but I do look at this from a very pragmatic and logical perspective, right? Mm-hmm. There is a group back east that's talking about reparations for slavery, right?
Okay.
So you remember how slavery was a thing in this country a couple hundred years ago?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
All right. So there are a group of people who are saying, hey, the government, the people need to dig into their pockets and pay us because we've been set so far back by virtue of coming into this institution and coming to this country largely by way of slavery, right? And, my thinking is, from that purely logical and pragmatic standpoint, let's figure out what that number is, okay? And so here's how we can figure out what that number is. We can say, on average, what's your income now, income and education level, right? Because those things are very quantifiable. So we take that average income among the given subset of the population, and we compare it to what it might have been had that person actually never been captured and interned into the institution of slavery, right?
Okay.
So you go to places like Uganda and Somalia and all over West Africa, really, and you look at the same sort of average income and average education. Well, it turns out you owe them money if you're looking at it from that perspective, because the road not taken is always the road not taken. By and large, that particular subset of the population has not only overcome slavery, they have far surpassed any inhibitions or problems that they might have had just by virtue of being here in this country, in the land of opportunity, if you will, right? And so at the end of the day, the road not taken is the road not taken. You don't know what would have been before, and you can't go back and compare that to what is now.
Right.
Because it just very easily may well be, as it is in this case, when you look at the numbers, that you are leaps and bounds ahead of where you would have been had that not happened to your ancestors some 200 years ago.
Well, okay, so bring that back into my situation. That's completely true for me. Okay. So let's say that I had gone for the manager position, and let's say that I had gotten it.
Right.
I would be in a different state. I would be working where I was working and working projects, doing what I was doing. I never would have branched out, moved to a different state, gone through the life coaching curriculum, understood that really, in the grand scheme of things, is what I want to do with my life.
Right.
So every opportunity or every missed opportunity will ultimately lead us down a path that may be for our own good. And I don't necessarily want to say that that's fate, because I believe that we have freedom of choice. And there's a contradiction when you have the right to choose and freedom of choice. There's a contradiction in fate. And that means that fate is basically, you're on a charted path, and no matter what you do, you're going to end up at point B. You're going to end up at that location. I disagree with that. I could go out and rob a bank. Yeah, I could go out and rob a bank tomorrow, be imprisoned for 40 years or whatever the going rate is for bank robbery. And it's going to lead me in a completely different direction because of my choice. But I know that intuition plays a role in that, right? And so if I hadn't followed my instinct or my gut in that moment, my life would be in a completely different path. I would be in a different state. I would be doing something completely different. Who knows if I would still have my job or not? You never know. And so, but everything that I chose in that moment, it cascaded onto a completely different life-altering opportunity that ultimately led me to a happier outcome than if I had chosen work over family.
But the point, the moral of the story is you don't know that, because the road not taken is always the road not taken.
True. It's an assumption. It's an absolute assumption. You're right. You're absolutely right. We don't know. I could be running the company now, for all we know.
Yeah, you could be running the company, running a different company,
Dang
sitting
it.
in the White House. You could be, the freshman senator from the great state of wherever. You don't know, right? You might be, you might be down in that, under the underpass with a meth problem. You don't know. I mean, hopefully you wouldn't be, and probably that's not the case. But I mean, it's a little hyperbolic because you don't see things in that extreme generally. Generally, you're not too far removed from where you would be dropped down into any situation, because your beliefs are the same, your paradigms are the same.
Right.
And they'll gradually evolve, but not rapidly. I mean, it takes an intervention to make rapid paradigm changes. I mean, we know that. That's what we do for people, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
You take that crappy paradigm that has got you what you don't want year after year after year, and man, you can change that thing in a weekend.
Right. Absolutely.
But people don't do it on their own. On their own, they don't. They fall back to the comfort of that paradigm time and time again, year after year after year after year after year. And so, at the end of the day, we make decisions that dramatically alter our lives for better or worse in an instant, right? I hit that point where it's like, hey, I just cannot live my life without exercise anymore, right? I've got high blood pressure and high cholesterol, and I'm gaining weight, and my wife can't stand me, and my kids don't respect me, and whatever. And you hit that, right? And you hit that point, you crescendo, you just go up and up and up and up and up, and you hit the point where you're just like, right now, I'm a different person. Right now, I can't take it anymore. Things change. And you leash up the dog and you go do a couple of miles and it hurts. And that takes you on a different path, right? Now, the problem is we spend 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years doing that. It gets worse and worse and worse, and we dip our toe in until finally we jump in with both feet, and in an instant, that paradigm shifts and the change is made, right? And so the trick is to cut the 3 or 4 or 5 years between you and your change. Cut that out. Go to the change right now. And you can go to the change right now. That's the good news. Bad news is you can't do it alone, right? You need a third-party perspective to get you over that hump. Doing it alone, on average, you're going to spend 3 to 5 years doing it. But if you're going to change your life for the better in the moment you're in, and it happens in an instant, but it takes, a few hours, 48, 72 hours of really working with someone to help them get to that point. Well, it can happen over a weekend, right?
Right.
And
Absolutely.
then you just change your life, right? You accelerate. You skip those 3 to 5 years of crap and just go, no, I know the right direction and this is it and I'm taking it. And you can get to the point where you have, quote unquote, had enough in a very short period of time with some help, right? That's got to be moderated.
So what about the people who don't seek out that help, and they're in that crappy situation, they're basically in the car wreck, or they're living that life that we go, oh, my life might be bad, but it's not that bad.
Right.
What about those people? How do they make that change? Because I've seen a lot of examples throughout the years of people who, one of the biggest things that I'm pointing out as I'm going through my book or in conversations that we've had, I know that we've talked about this multiple times, but there's happiness and there's comfort. And a lot of times comfort is the enemy of happiness. And so if you're living in a comfortable environment, and you're cool and it's good and it's all right, you go through the same old motions every day. There's 50% engagement in your own life, and the other 50%, well, you don't know because you don't really explore it, and that's okay because right now you're just going through the motions. Well, it's not okay because death comes for all men, and so eventually you're going to run out of time, and you've lived your life at a 50%. At a 50%, you're halfway in the door. What happens to those people?
Well, those people generally spend their lives confusing contentment with comfort, right? Mm-hmm. As you pointed out, comfortable people don't take action. Comfortable people don't move because I'm relatively comfortable. But you're living a very comfortable lifestyle, but you're very discontented. Do you see the difference there? Mm-hmm. It's one thing to be comfortable. Like I've got the job down at the factory, pretty good. I've got medical, I've got vision, I've got dental. I've thrown a little bit of money in a 401k. One day when I'm too old to enjoy it, I'll, start pulling money out of the 401k, and I won't have to go down to the factory every day for, the last 10, 15 years until I croak, right? Mm-hmm. But, and that can be a very comfortable lifestyle. That's a, 3-4 bedroom house in the burbs with, cute little puppy dog out back and a little container garden or whatever it is, right? But if those people ever stopped to look at what makes them content versus what makes them comfortable, for some people, it's the same thing. And for some people, what I just described is their dream come true. And if that's the case, God bless and good luck, right? That's fantastic. You have arrived. But for most people, they dream of bigger things. They secretly lay down at night and dream bigger dreams. They think about writing the book, or they think about shooting the film, or they think about, I'll become a photographer. I'll travel the world. I'll live on a sailboat. I'll convert a van and drive around America, right? Whatever. All of those are things I want to do, by the way. Like, I see the world through as I
they
am.
sound fantastic.
That's the Friedrich Nietzsche-ism, where it's like we don't see the world as it is, but rather as we are. But somebody else might have something considerably more creative than that. Just fill in the blanks, right? Tell me what your thing is. Because independent of actually out working on living your thing, you can be incredibly comfortable and wildly discontented, right? I mean, the number one profession in America for the practitioners committing suicide is dentistry.
What?
Yep. Think about that.
Are you kidding me right now?
I kid you not. Dentists. And they're not far behind them are doctors, and behind them are police officers.
What?
Okay?
Okay.
Yep. And so the dream come true, right? Oh, honey, you'll grow up, you'll meet a nice dentist or a doctor, and you'll have a house in the suburbs, right? And I don't know what sweet Jewish lady from the Bronx I'm making fun
I don't
of
know,
now,
like
but
Barbara Streisand. Like, where did that come from?
I don't know.
It's like butter. That's all that came to mind. It's like butter.
Oh, I guess I've seen too much television. Oh, he's a doctor. He's a doctor. Your sister met a doctor. Why can't you get a doctor? But no, at the end of the day, here is a person who has gone through the path. And that's not to say there aren't happy dentists out there. Obviously, there are, right? Mm-hmm. Because
I hope mine is.
I'm taking you with me. Death by Novocaine. Yeah, that's it. Death by laughing gas. Just leave the laughing gas on her. I don't care. We're all going down. This boat's going down.
I didn't even know my dentist was Jewish.
Mazel tov, young lady. But really, like, the problem you have there is that you have somebody who has been shown this path whereby if you get on this particular little treadmill and you walk on it far enough, i.e., undergrad and medical school and a dentistry specialty and all of that stuff, you come out on the other side 10 or 12 years later, and congratulations, you're a dentist, right? Mm-hmm. And someone is doing it because it is a very lucrative profession. It's a job that needs to be done and will always need to be done. But if you're not really super passionate about oral health, then chances are you're going to be incredibly comfortable and incredibly discontented at the same time.
That makes sense.
And because of that's where you have the suicide numbers. Now, that's not to say that every dentist out there is suicidal, right? I'm not saying that by any stretch of the imagination, right?
I hope not.
They're absolutely not. Because suicide is, while it's a huge problem, it's also a very, very, very small number, not just in dentistry, but in the population in general, right? Most people don't know that many people who have taken their own life, Mm-hmm. Because just as a number in the aggregate, it's not happening all that frequently. But when you take those really small numbers among professions, where people are pursuing, I don't know, the arts or creativity or things that just, really drive them, and you compare it in the aggregate to dentistry, you're more likely to kill yourself if you're a dentist. You are. I mean, that's just what the numbers say.
But don't you think that it's so here's the thing. it's easy to be comfortable, but with comfort, you are giving up passion for complacency almost. Because,
Maybe.
I mean, and maybe not. Like, maybe not. Maybe there are people out there who are passionate about being comfortable and they get to comfort and they're like, woohoo, this is the most amazing thing ever. However, I would venture to say that finding happiness is oftentimes uncomfortable because
Yeah.
you have to go through the growth and the stretching that is required to get out of your comfort zone to live a passionate life. I mean, and I'm not trying to, stand on a mountaintop and be philosophical here. I'm not trying to do
Right.
that. But the truth is the path to happiness is not comfortable because there is no growth in comfort.
You're right.
Right?
Comfortable people do not move.
I mean, I could stay in a relationship where, 45% of my needs are met, and then I figure out the rest, and I smile and I make toast and eggs for breakfast, and I go about my day, and I, check in at night, and I sleep beside this person, and, it's okay, but
Yeah.
it's also safe. So I'm taking that safe route because I don't want to stretch. I don't
That's
want
right.
I don't want to be in a situation where it hurts. And that actually rings more true than not for a lot of people, I would say.
Yeah. And the thing is, you can apply that to anything. You can apply that to a job, a church, a dog in the yard, right? 45% of the time, old Blue's a pretty good boy, and he only chews my boots up when whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, the kids kind of like him, and I don't really want to, I don't want to spend $5,000 getting him professionally trained. I know that. And so I just kind of deal with whatever I'm dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
Right.
that's comfort minus contentment. But you can get to contentment, but to get to contentment, you've got to walk through you got to walk the path of contentment, which oftentimes involves pain. It involves moving. You have to stretch both physically and spiritually and mentally and every other way, right? Oftentimes it requires a stretch. And anybody who's ever done any stretching knows that that's painful. It sucks.
But it gets easier. And this reminds me of somebody that I was friends with for a lot of years. And he had a lot of issues that he had to overcome in his relationships with his spouse, his children, his work. He worked with his family, and every time I would ask him, "Are you happy?" And his response would always be, "I'm content." And that was never a good enough answer for me, but it was for him. And so he kind of set that bar. But I will tell you that the longer he stayed in that content zone, the more he lost.
But here's the thing. He's confusing contented with comfortable.
I
He
can
wasn't
see that.
content. He wasn't contented. He wasn't. He was comfortable. Contentment lends itself toward like self-realization and self-actualization. It's a Zen-like state, right? It's this beautiful, placid, wonderful state of being. I'm all right. I'm not in too much pain. That's comfortable. And so that would be my only argument. It's just a semantical argument.
Where does that leave people like me who I'm all about diving in to the uncomfortable about 80% of the time. There's probably 20% that I don't even go towards. But I'm good with the uncomfortable because I'm forever in that search of happiness. And I understand the progress, and I understand where I need to go. Now, I also avoid trying to compare myself with other people. I know that there's some level of comparison that takes place naturally. You're always figuring out where you are in the race. If a bear's chasing us, I just need to be faster than you, kind of thing. And so I completely get that. But I have walked away from comfortable many times because comfortable was not good enough, but yet I ended up alone. And so what does that look like?
And did that aloneness lead to discomfort, discontent, or both, or
No,
either?
it led to growth. I mean, obviously it wasn't my ideal situation, but it led to personal growth. It led to the opportunity to explore new things and understand the different layers of myself as a human being and my relationships and the people I interacted with. And it opened up greater opportunities than what I had before. And I understand that, but I only understand that because I wasn't okay with stopping at the comfort zone.
Right.
So I understand that that's not the norm, that the majority of people out there are not going to go, you know what? I don't like the way you butter your toast, so that's uncomfortable to me. I'm going to bail. Like, I mean, that's obviously, way out there in the whole grand scheme of things. But the point is there are often times where you will give up a comfortable situation and you are faced with an abyss and you're jumping off a cliff and you don't know where you're going to land. Now, there are some people that are excited by that, but the majority of people are not.
Right.
So if I'm in the not category, which I would venture to say that you and I both are in the okay category as opposed to the not category. I mean, neither one of us are afraid of that abyss, or we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. But speaking to our audience that is in the not category, how do you solve for that? How do you go from the comfort zone to something greater than possibly you could ever imagine or you've ever experienced? Because it is out there. And I can say that and you can say that, but ultimately it may not translate the way we're anticipating. So what do we do?
Well, I mean, the exercise that I would engage in, well, first of all, getting outside of your comfort zone has been the problem for as long as man's been kicking around on the planet, right? Time immemorial. It's like if I have got some smoked meat in the cave and a nice fire and it looks cold out there, it's snowing, I'm not going to go out today, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what happens eventually is you run out of meat, you run out of apples, you run out of whatever's in the cave, you run out of firewood, it starts to get cold, and you become uncomfortable. And so you go out and look for your contentment because you have lost your comfort. Okay? Mm-hmm. And this is a real common problem, not just mankind. Look at zoos. Look at animal zoos all over the world. There are a lot of people who are very, very interested in the well-being of animals. I'm one of them. I get that. Mm-hmm. But they get very frustrated when they go to a zoo and they see this beautiful, majestic, big cat, and the thing is living in, a pen that's maybe 3,000 square feet. It's gone from the endless acreage of the savannah to 3,000 square feet, on the mountain above downtown or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And people will stop and say, "Oh my gosh, that's just terrible. You're destroying that poor creature's life and you're taking its dignity and majesty away from it and whatever." Here's what they don't understand though. If a goat mysteriously appeared every morning out on the savannah by a certain tree, that lion would never venture outside of a 100-foot radius of that tree.
Agreed. Okay.
It would choose to stay exactly where it is in its comfort zone. And so the only way to get out of the comfort zone is to figuratively or literally make yourself uncomfortable. You got to be brave enough to make yourself uncomfortable. And sometimes life will do that for you, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're sitting there in the cave and, hey, guess what? We're out of meat and the kids are screaming and, your wife's hitting you on the back of the head with a club, handing you your spear, saying, "Go get more meat." Well, she does that enough, and you got knots on the back of your head, and you're bleeding a little bit, and you're going, "Holy crap, this bitch is crazy."
This is not my comfort zone at all.
I am no longer comfortable. She is not comfortable. The kids are not comfortable. There's no meat in the cave, right? Where's that spear? I'm out. This sucks. Now, so life will do it to you by itself. Life will give you the opportunity to fall out of the comfort zone, right? The trick, if you really want to make that massive paradigm shift, and you want to do it very, very quickly and kind of level up, take yourself to a next level in a very, very short amount of time, is to engage in exercises that help you acknowledge your inherent discomfort with where you are. You stop relying on creature comforts and start talking about mental, intellectual, spiritual comforts that you, in fact, do not have if you're going to be honest with yourself. And there again, if you're honest with yourself and you have them, congratulations. Mazel tov, young man.
Are you a dentist?
That was the dude from The Simpsons. Well, I can't remember his name. Anyway, I don't even remember. Morty or something. I don't remember. But like if you've arrived, you've arrived. Self-actualize. Realize that, cruise on down to the factory where you love the people you work with and sit in your cube or your office or on the line or wherever you are and go get a beer after work and come home and kiss your wife and help your kids with their algebra, kick your feet up, watch a little late night television, go to bed, do it all again tomorrow morning when the whistle blows. And if that's where you want to be and you're not just comfortable but truly content, then congratulations, you have won the game of life. Just keep doing that thing that you love to do. Just enjoy it. But if you don't, if you find that, hey, this is not working for me, or you even suspect that it's not working for you, because if you're afraid it's not working, if you are afraid that what you're doing right now is not getting you where do you want to be, and so the exercise that I would recommend is for people just to sit down, you and a sheet of blank paper and a pen, and I want you to go through and describe for me your ideal average day, okay? And that's not to say your ideal day. Your ideal day might be with the love of your life on a beach somewhere and there's, whatever, unicorns and I don't know, it's raining marshmallows. I don't want your ideal day. Right? I don't want your ideal day. I want your ideal average day, which is to say, if you got kids, the kids got to go to school today. The dogs have to be fed, right? The things have to happen. You have to do a little bit of work to produce a little bit of income to keep this dream alive, right? To keep feeding those children. So
something realistic, basically.
Well, it's just like in the real world. It's not some day it's not a day of vacation. It's your ideal average day, right? I'll give you kind of the short story in mind. Like if I could just do my ideal average day, I would probably get up whenever I wake up in the morning, 9:30 or 10 o'clock, I'm embarrassed to say, if I just let my body sleep.
Wow. It's amazing.
Well, I'm up late though. I'm kind of a vampire, right? So I'm usually up till 2 in the morning. Just thinking or writing or editing or whatever I'm doing, right? And so I just like get up whenever my body wakes up in the morning, and I would, have a nice conversation with some significant other and maybe a little bite of breakfast and go to Barnes and Noble. No, not really. I could,
You're the one last customer at Barnes and Noble, huh?
I could hear it getting really average. I heard the averageness coming in.
Wake me up when this is over.
Yeah, seriously. Whoa, I think I just died of boredom a little bit. I saw a light. There was a tunnel of light, but turns out I bored myself to death. Luckily, the old ticker kicked back in and I came back. I'm back now. But, I would go and probably shoot some stock footage or shoot some stock images, or there would be work, right? I would communicate, work on a project. I always like to think and produce and create more stuff. either for myself or for clients or for this podcast or for whatever, right? Because I enjoy doing stuff like that. I just enjoy that. And, hopefully from time to time it pays the bills. But it's a real day, right? Sit down and write down your real day. And so if you have to get up at 6 in the morning and get the kids ready for school, and that's not really something that you can ignore, then that should not be part of your ideal average day, because it's got to be your average day. And if you look at your ideal average day and then you go out to the side of that and write down what your reality is, right? So even if you go as far as to say, okay, 6 a.m., 6:30, 6:45, 7 o'clock, and keep going all the way through your day. Give me 25, 30 lines until the early afternoon, every 15 or 30 minutes. And in your ideal day, what behavior are you engaged in if you could just do anything? And in your real typical day, what behavior are you engaged in? Right? And so when I am out, with all the suicidal maniacs on the freeway, driving into wherever, the office or whatever, and I'm, rocking that hour and 15-minute commute each way, then that's going on the chart from, 7:30 to 8:45. Here's what I'm doing in my real day. But in my ideal day, what would I be doing? And so what you're doing is you're subtracting reality from your ideal. And that creates a deficit. And reconciling that deficit will show you that while you might be creating comfort in the evenings or whatever, you're not really creating contentedness.
I agree with that. I would venture to say that most of us are living in a deficit.
Most of us are living in a deficit. I heard a guy talking about this the other day. He was actually a comedian, but he's talking about how, you'll grow up one day and you will go to work in a room made of carpet, right? And it's like, a room made of carpet? Yeah, there are these cube things with little windows and they're made out of carpet, right? And they are made out of carpet. You think about it, right? There's some version of carpet on the little cubes that we go sit in and organize thoughts and processes and whatever that most people do. Most people who are working that type of job do. But it goes a little bit deeper than that, because oftentimes they are doing that in a very comfortable car, right? So they've got $400 or $500 plus another couple $100 in insurance payments, $600-700 a month, driving the super comfortable car into the room of carpet where they do whatever they do. Okay. And so you've got to ask yourself, if I didn't have the $700 a month commitment for the car to get very comfortably down the road on that hour and 15-minute commute each way, which I'm not begrudging you that, right? If you've got an hour and 15-minute commute, I want some XM, Sirius, radio, AC, heat. I want it all, right? I get that. But at some point, you've got to subtract the car from the ideal. If the ideal is I go out in the desert and, photograph desert scenes all day and distribute those fine art images all around the world to galleries, and my agent handles it all, and that's your ideal, then there's a huge deficit there, right? If the difference is, I'm driving the GMC and I really would rather be driving that hour and 15-minute commute in the Cadillac version, then there's not much deficit at all, right?
Right.
You're a lot closer to content than you realize. But if there's a huge deficit there, if you're subtracting your reality from your ideal and there's a great big minus sign, then you've got to take that to heart and say, look, man, how long am I going to do this? Am I really going to do this until I'm 65? 70?
Right.
75? What am I doing here?
Well, and I think that the biggest factor in that equation is the belief that it's possible to move from that deficit into a positive space. And I think that most people don't grasp that. So you may identify where you are, and you may identify that ideal day, and you may see the deficit, but you have to believe that you can move the needle.
Yeah, I agree. I agree
And,
absolutely.
and that's the difference. So the people who believe that they can move that needle and they burst out of their comfort zone because they want to make it happen, or maybe they sneak out of their comfort zone. Like, there's no specific speed that you have to make that transition. This is your life.
Right.
And you can make that transition in small steps. You don't have to wake up one day and be in this world or this reality and wake up another day and be in a new reality. You can transition in a smaller space, but you have to believe that the option and the ability is there.
Right.
And that's, you have to believe in yourself, and you have to believe that that's an option. You know, it's kind of like if I woke up and said, my ideal average day would be I'd be doing photo shoots for Vogue or whatever. Okay, truth is I'm 44. I'm not ever going to be a model for Vogue. But really keying into what is doable and what is achievable.
Right.
And that's the key piece of this puzzle.
Right. Well, that's self-realization, right? Mm-hmm. Self-actualization. You got to be able to look in the mirror and say, look, this is who I am and where I am and what I am and how it works. And then you've got to balance that with what's my ideal. What would I be doing if I could do absolutely anything? And then you start peeling back the layers of self-deceit that ride with that, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I would love nothing more than to be on the other side of the camera doing, photo shoots for Victoria's Secret all day, right? At least that's, that's what I tell myself, like I'm sure a lot of men do, right? That's what I tell myself. But then I have to go back and say, look, man, do I really have the chops, the portfolio, the knowledge, the people, the connections, all of the stuff that it takes decades to create? And at this point in my life, do I have decades to go recreate that? And if I do, then man, think about it. Let's pursue. But if I don't, then, I have to sort of scale that back. That goes back to earlier conversations we've had about constructing this hierarchy of wants, right? What do I want? Mm-hmm. And then I got to say, well, what do I want worse than something else?
But I think you're right. I think to your point, it's about what is doable and what is achievable and understanding. And I don't want to say limitations, but reality.
It's the capacity to walk before you run. Crawl before you walk before you run. The fact of the matter is, you don't know. You might be able to just stand up and run right now. But you have had years of paradigm building that has convinced you that you can't necessarily do exactly what you want when you want to do it. It's like, yeah, it sounds great for you and your little ideal day and all of that crap, but like, I can't just do that. My ideal day has nothing to do with going to work and I got kids to feed, right? And I get that. The thing that you're missing, though, is that you have had 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years of paradigm building telling you you've got to go to the carpet room. I've got to drive my hour and 15 minutes each way and sit in my little room of carpet and type my little keys and, make sure that idiot who works for me is doing his job so I don't look bad. And you've had years and years and years of polishing that paradigm to the point that it's an idol you're worshiping. So that's the way it is. You're taking that life and lifestyle on absolute faith because you've got a lot of time to back it up. You've got a lot of paradigm building there that's gone on for a very long time. And so if you want some massive intervention and you want to turn it around in a hurry, give us a call. But if you want to do it by yourself, which most people do, because that's just the culture we live in here in the States, people want to do things on their own by themselves, then what you've got to do is you've got to learn to crawl and then walk and then run in the direction of your dreams. You've got to have those little successes that make you think that, oh my gosh, look at that, man. I want to go shoot the Victoria's Secret catalog, but what I did was I dusted the old camera off and I took a class in Photoshop and then I took a class in social media marketing and now, I'm doing portraits of the neighbor's dog. He's actually going to pay me, right? Whatever, a man and his dog. Hey, right? I'm gonna do stuff, and I'm getting a little bit of money for it. And then you start to think, oh my gosh, well, if I can do the neighbor and his dog, maybe I could do a wedding, or maybe I could do, some high school seniors, or, gosh, there's that little flyer that goes out for the local clothing store. Where to get those photos from? Or that's all stock imagery, or like I could go shoot a little bit of something for that and build a portfolio and whatever, right? And so you're not making that massive paradigm shift that I'm talking about in terms of, people who really want to highly perform and level up, but you can make little minute changes over the course of time. I mean, the only thing worse than being on the 3 to 5 year plan is not being on any plan at all and knowing you're discontented.
Agreed. Well, if you're not moving forward, you're moving back. There is no sit still. And I think that that's what people fail to realize. So it's okay to take small steps forward. It's not okay to take no steps forward, because ultimately, whether you like it or not, if you're not moving forward, you're moving back. And that's a hard thing for people to grasp, but there is no stagnant. There is no sit still in life. We're in constant motion. We're in constant movement. And it is absolutely okay to take small steps. However, if you want to take bigger steps and you want that help to get where you want to be, I mean, it's the difference in saying, I want a 5-year plan versus I want a 2-year plan.
Right.
Both are doable. They're absolutely doable, but you can accomplish in 2 years what you set out to potentially accomplish by yourself in 5. And that's what people fail to realize. The constant progression can go quickly or it can go slowly, and it really is your choice. And I think a lot of times people choose what they're comfortable with. But there again, if you want movement, if you want change, get out of your comfort zone.
Yep, that's right.
I think they're all really good points. I think that you got to get away from the comparative. You've got to get away from the car accident and saying, well, I'm one up above them, so my shitty life must be okay because I'm having a better day than that person. Yep. And that's, it's not a good thing.
It's not.
So,
and you've got to get away from life is okay because, the Eagles won last week or whatever, right?
Did they?
I don't know. I don't follow. But you know what I'm saying. And I make fun of...
I do.
I make fun of my friends in Philly because they're so crazy obsessive, right? They're nuts. And it's awesome and good for them. But is that your life really? Is that you moving forward really? Or is that what you do to distract yourself? Putting a W on the board that you had nothing to do with before you go back down to the plant the next day and kind of hate your life. And there again, if you love your life, you love it. Good for you. But if you don't, then let's get on a plan to change it.
Well, and I think the biggest thing here is there is enough happiness for everyone.
Right.
There is enough for everybody to have their fair share. So that removes any comparison. And, that could be a whole nother podcast. But there's enough out there for everybody. So get out of scarcity mode. Make the movement that you need to make. If you want it quickly, you want the help, call us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, good.
I love it. I don't ever want to wake up and go, this is my life and it's okay.
It's pretty okay.
It's all right. I mean, you'll take it. No. That's not the life I was born to live, and I don't think anybody else was either. So, good talk.
All right. All right. Very good. Well, you've made it all the way through yet another episode, so congratulations.
Except we lost Arizona, but that's okay. We still have Montana.
There you go. There you go. Montana. He's our boy up there now. They love us in Montana, especially little shacks out in the woods.
We love you, Montana. Keep polishing that gun.
Let's just see if we can just make fun of every state in the union.
48 more to go.
Then we'll have to leave the country, and then we'll be international.
Belize, here we come.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. All right.
Problem is that nobody will know because we'll have to have changed our names by then. All right. Let's wrap it up. As always, thanks for showing up. Giving us an opportunity to have a little bit of a voice and explore some of these topics. Until next time, dream your life.
And live your dreams.
Woo! I said it, almost said it without laughing that time. I don't know why it's funny to me lately. Like, I love that catch line. I wrote that. I love that. But I'm so weird. Such a strange experience. All right. Until next time, goodbye.
Bye-bye.